Maliss and Ryzeal are the most anticipated decks coming out in crossover breakers. Maliss is a Cyber's Link strategy that revolves around the Banished Zone. Maliss is based on the tale of Alice in Wonderland, and the Banished pile acts as the underworld that Alice fell into. With this deck, you're aiming to Link climb by combining their powerful effects, along with the utility of the Link card pool. Maliss's disruptions are in the form of banishing your opponent's cards. Ryzeal is an Exceed-based strategy that revolves around the rank 4 toolbox. Their boss monster is very similar to Zoodiac Trident, in that it can destroy cards on the field, but without the once per turn clause. As Exceed monsters have been out for more than a decade, there are plenty of options in the rank 4 toolbox that can swing the game in your favor. The question that everyone's been asking, can these decks finally overcome the hold that Snake Eye and its sinful spoils have had on the Yu-Gi-Oh metagame? That's what we're about to find out now with this Ryzeal deck profile. For the Ryzeal monsters, I play 3 copies of Ext, 3 copies of Ice, 3 copies of Sword, and the 1 Node. For the other Ryzeal cards, I play 1 copy of Cross, the field spell. I could see myself playing more of this because it's the best one and you really don't want to lose it to Pot of Desires. But there's some ways to work around even if you banish this off of the Desires. So it's not the end of the world if this gets banished. 1 copy of Ryzeal plugin, the quick spell that attaches, and 1 copy of Plasma Hole, the trap. And for the other engine cards, I play 3 copies of Bonfire. Bonfire can search your 2 best starters in X Ryzeal and Ice Ryzeal, as they're both pyro monsters. I also play 2 copies of Small World. I don't believe this card is very good, seeing as it's quite bad in Handtrap wars, as it's a neg 1. But the deck really lacks starter cards, and Small World can grab you any of your pieces, or Handtraps if you have redundant engine cards. But this is a card I can see myself playing 1, 2, 3 or even 0 of, particularly if you get more starter cards in this deck of higher quality, or if you play other supplementary engines to go along with your Ryzeal core. Next I play draw spells in the form of 3 copies of Pot of Desires. This deck is very similar to Zoodiac, in that a lot of your cards just do the same thing, and desiring away a couple names doesn't really matter, while getting the draw 2 is very important. And then the sole copy of Pot of Prosperity. For the non-engine, I decided to go with Handtraps, as I believe those are the best against Yubel and Snake Eye. I could see myself trying a mix of board breakers and Handtraps, or just board breakers in general, if the meta shapes up to be more Maliss and Ryzeal focus. But for right now, I have 3 copies of Nibiru, the Primal Being. Then I decided to main deck all 6 of the current available Mulcharmies. As Ryzeal is a rank 4 toolbox deck, and your Duo Drive, which is your searcher, is generic, if your special summon starter like Ext gets interrupted by, say, an infinite impermanence, you could just normal summon a Mulcharmy alongside it and make a rank 4. Seeing as the Ryzeal deck is quite a low ceiling deck, whilst also lacking starter cards, I really want to stunt my opponent's plays with the Mulcharmies, and also dig deeper into my deck to hopefully see my engine cards when I go second. Depending on how the metagame shapes up, I could see myself just playing Purulia, seeing as it is better against the mirror match. But I prefer Fugalos when I play against Yubel or against Maliss. For the other Handtraps, I play 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and 3 copies of Effect Veiler. Seeing as this deck can play neither Purge nor Dominus Impulse, I decided to go with Effect Veiler and Imperm, seeing as these can disrupt your opponent while not locking you out of your place. Additionally, as Snake Eye and Yubel are still very prevalent decks, I wanted to have Imperm and Veiler against them, seeing as they're very good hand traps into those decks. For the extra deck, I have 1 copy of Light Dragon Adignister to destroy monsters, 1 copy of Baguska. This card is really good into pretty much every deck besides Maliss. As your Plasma Hole Trap card allows you to make an Exceed play in your opponent's turn, you can make a Baguska if the situation calls for it. 2 copies of Ryzeal Duo Drive, and 2 copies of Ryzeal Detonator. I believe you need at least 2 of these for the grind game, and to make sure that Cashier Unicorn cannot banish them. But I could see myself needing the 3rd copy of Detonator, in particular grind games. Then I play 1 copy of Evil Storm Exeter Knight, a good equalizer for the decks that gain a lot of advantage. 1 copy of Tornado Dragon to destroy spell and trap cards. 1 copy of number 60 Dugara as the Timeless, to dig deeper into your deck and allow for some OTKs. 1 copy of Abyss Dweller, it's very good against Mermails or other graveyard reliant decks. 1 copy of Aggregator to dump with your Ext. 1 copy of Divine Arsenal AA Zeus. While you lock yourself into only rank 4s, this card comes up in grind games. And there's some nifty plays by making with Plasma Hole in the battle phase. Then I play 1 copy of Typhon. Again, you can use Plasma Hole in the opponent's turn to summon this to bypass the restriction and still use the bounce effect in your turn. Then I decided to play a couple Link monsters, so I have 1 IP Masquerena and 1 SP Little Knight. The reason why I play these is to have some counterplay to Dimensional Barrier when you go second. Say you go second and you want to play around your opponent's dimensional barrier that they have face down. So what you can do if you have Ice Ryzeal is you go normal summon Ice, special summon X from your deck, use X's effect to search a sword. Here your opponent will likely just use their dimensional barrier, calling XYZ. What you can do here is you link these two off for an IP Masquerena. Since you have a Ryzeal monster in your graveyard, you can special summon Sword from your hand and use Sword's effect, searching an additional copy of Ice for the follow-up turn. At this point you're now locked thanks to Sword, but you cannot summon XYZ monsters anyway. So here you can pass, and in your opponent's turn use IP, link these two off into an SP Little Knight, banishing a card and then tagging this out and their monster for yet another interruption. The IP Masquerena is also yet another way to link off your bodies. So with Ryzeal Cross, you cannot XYZ summon monsters with the same name as XYZ monsters you control. So if you control a detonator that has used all of its materials, you can link this off into an IP and then make yet another detonator. For the side deck, I play 3 copies of Artifact Lancia against the Maliss deck, 1 copy of Call by the Grave, 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster, and 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone, 1 copy of Talent, along with 3 copies of Thrust to search it out. By playing Thrust, Talents, and Harpy's Feather Duster, you now have good cards to side into Labyrinth or other trap strategies when you go second, seeing as you would want to take out Nibiru and the Mulcharmies against those decks. To go along with the Thrust, I also have 1 copy of Different Dimension Ground, a very good card to search against the Snake Eye or Yubel matchup when they hand trap you, and 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier for the mirror match. It will be very interesting to see how the metagame develops with Dimensional Barrier for the Ryzeal mirror. A lot of people equate this deck to Zoodiac, in that it's a rank 4 toolbox deck that summons a card that's effectively a Trident, in the form of Detonator. Back in 2017, when we had Dimensional Barrier for the Zoodiac mirror match, people played Solemn Strike so that if you got Dimensional Barrier, you could set a powerful trap. That was almost 8 years ago, and Yu-Gi-Oh has changed a lot since then, so perhaps that strategy would be too slow in today's metagame, but it is something to think about. Other options I had was to play the full armored Utopic Ray Lancer. To exceed somewhere over a detonator that has used its materials, you can make yet another with Ryzeal Cross face up. But with my inclusion of IP Masquerena, I felt this card was not needed for that situation. And a card that has seen a lot of play throughout the years in various Tier 0 formats is Lullaby of Obedience. Seeing as this deck lacks starter cards, for the mirror match you could call pretty much any of your Ryzeal names with Lullaby and immediately add them to your hand. If the Ryzeal mirror match becomes prevalent enough, you could definitely consider Lullaby of Obedience to search out any of your Ryzeal names.